Hello, hello, soulful seekers. Welcome back to Trauma and Transcendence. It has been so long. Really, it has been so long since it's been just me and you. I want to say since like April. I am incredibly sorry. Life really caught up with me and had a whole bunch of just needs that took priority. And so you lost time with me, but I'm here to make up for that tonight. So tonight, I was thinking, let's talk about the Akashic Records. We've had lots of wonderful guests on, and I've enjoyed everyone, but I've really missed this one-on-one time reflection with you where I'm talking about a topic and we're digging in. Tonight, I am live. If you've seen the link, then you're able to make it into the studio and you can post comments and ask questions and see what you'd like to learn about the Akashic Records. If you've had an experience about the Akashic Records that you'd like to share, you're welcome to pop in, write a comment, and do that too. I'll do my best to kind of keep track of everything and answer them. So, why the Akashic Records? When I began with the Akashic Records, I was introduced in a couple of different ways, and it kind of seemed like it culminated all at once. There was a lot of personal research happening. I had a roommate who did Akashic record readings, and then also I was taking several classes when I lived in Boston, and the records were being accessed and taught there too. Now, the records themselves are a very hard to explain concept. Now that I'm thinking about it. So it is like all of consciousness, the collective unconscious, in the way that Carl Jung would have described it, is available through accessing the Akashic Records. And that means everyone in humanity, currently living, having lived previously, not currently living, and otherwise is connected in this realm. And there are several different ways to tap into the collective unconscious and the Akashic Records. And depending on how you tap in and what your goals are, can mean very different things in terms of what you get for an outcome. So I like to use the records for my own personal soul work. I like to go in there for self-healing. I like to connect with my guides, my angels. Occasionally, I like to do mediumship in there because it's an entirely different vibration. And you can do mediumship within the Akashic Records. Now, just because someone is a medium doesn't mean they are doing mediumship in the records. There are some tips and tricks to the trade that might make a difference in there. So a lot of people who are born mediums are not actively in and out of the records all the time, consciously or even knowingly or even unconsciously. But some are. So it's a weird little dynamic to think about. And it's a weird concept, but it's a real cool one in terms of what it helps us to have available in our own lives for healing, for self-reflection, for coaching. So when I teach the Akashic Records these days, typically we spend quite a few hours together. I like to teach the first segment of the Akashic Records in a workshop. And it's just a very open format kind of classroom where I guide everybody into meditation. They have their first experience with the records. And then I talk more about it and help them understand what they've just experienced from there and give some notes and a little bit of homework on how they can continue to do that work. And it's a topic that's never really ever fully done. I don't think there are enough classes. I don't think there are enough moments to really share the expansiveness of what the Akashic Records really are and what all we can do in them. At least not for myself. I find every time I go in, I'm learning new things. I'm having different experiences. I'm having just more opportunities to see the different potentials and possibilities. So a lot of people think of the Akashic Records and they immediately think, oh, can I go to my past lives? And absolutely you can. But I'm going to say there's a caveat to that, and it comes with a degree of difficulty. It's not an easy thing to do. And so for that reason, I actually don't go and visit my own past lives in the records. One, because I'm incredibly biased. I'm a hypnotherapist and I enjoy seeing other colleagues and hypnotherapists for their work and actually having a regression session versus just hopping into my Akashic Records and doing it on my own. Because it's really, really tough to stay objective. And that is the biggest challenge. So, yes, you can go and visit your past lives in the Akashic Records, but you might lose objectivity. You might not get to ask everything you want to ask or be guided in a way that would be helpful. What else can we do in the records? When I teach them in the workshop, typically I'm teaching it from the frame of self-development. If we're going into the records, it's not for fortune telling. It's not because there is fate or destiny happening or, okay, there's a caveat there too. Let me be for real. So some things, yes, are like big thoughts on a map that our soul has planned. Whether we take the train, the bus, or we walk to those points on the map, the soul doesn't particularly mind or care. And it looks like I've got poor connection. Okay, I think we're back. Sorry for the disruption, a little bit of connection issue there. But so the soul doesn't mind in terms of the experience we want to have of a lesson. So some things can actually be planned and discerned to happen in our lives. And the rest of it is very much up to us. It's up to our free will and what we choose to do with it, to do with our time, to do with our decisions. And so that's the part of the Akashic Records that I love, is that we can go in and explore the potentials of different choices, of different options. We can see different perspectives and look at things in a way that we're not used to looking at them, without so much of the ego and the personal bias that we would have in any other way. It's also an opportunity to go back and look at decisions we've already made to say, that was interesting. Could I have gone a different way? And if I had, what might I have learned? And we can actually see differences through different times and choices and perspectives and things that would happen. And so I find that's really fascinating as well. So within the records, if there's anything I can impart about the records, it's that for me, it's living. It is a living record. It's eternal. It is expansive. I'm going to say infinite and eternal. And so for that reason, I never really feel like I'm ever going to quite learn enough about them. And the best thing I can say about the records is, yes, it's fun to get an Akashic Records reading, but the best work with the Akashic Records is when you dive in and you start doing your own work within the records and you start to explore the different potentials and possibilities there. And it's a wonderful way to go in for self-growth, to look at manifesting, to do a little bit of healing work if you feel like you've had any energy kind of stuck on you that's not yours. It's a wonderful way to explore where that energy came from and to have support with your guides to begin to detach and remove it. So when I got started with the records, it really took a long time for me to actually begin to use them and have them become part of my daily life. And I almost lament that, because now that I have used them so much, I've learned so much, I enjoy it so much. I can't imagine why I waited so long, but I suppose everything in its time. And I think that can often be the case. Sometimes we get tools before we're really ready to actually harness and use them. And I think the Akashic Records can very much be one of those things the same. And it can be nuanced. accessing the records. It's kind of mystical, and oftentimes directions on how to do it are really unclear. And sometimes we get too attached to having somebody guide us rather than working at it and experiencing it on our own, or having enough validation of, am I doing this right? And finding out that actually you are. So you will have actually an opportunity coming up if you are local to Northeast Ohio. I will be reading at Elizabeth Howell's Fair on October 19th, which is a Sunday. I'll be doing Akashic Records readings in person. I'll also be doing shadow work readings, which are very much an archetypal style of reading, and it looks at what energies are complicit and how are you possibly getting in your own way, and how you can begin to use those energies in a more positive way to have better outcomes. They are not people's favorite readings. Tarot is really good at calling people out on their stuff. It's really good at saying, hey, if you continue on this path, these are the things that are going to happen. Angel Oracle cards are really good about making you feel comfortable and letting you know that you are safe if you're headed in the right direction, or where your thoughts are and how to redirect. Lenormand is good at giving you kind of a bird's eye view of what's happening in your life from multiple different angles, and giving you just the themes and the patterns of what's coming up. But archetypal readings, in the way that I do them, the shadow work readings, I use the Carolyn Mist deck, which is archetypes. It is so invasive. It really just gets to the most difficult parts of people's behavior and quite literally calls them out to say, hey, are you embodying this archetype in a way that is loving, that is helpful, that is beneficial, that is empowered? Or are you within that archetype in a way that's disempowered and possibly coming through with negative patterns of behavior and relating dynamics? But it is my favorite reading to do, because when I do them, boy, can we make some healing changes fast. And sometimes we just really need that, don't we? To be told by someone who's unbiased, but really just compassionate and kind of, what might you be doing in your life, and how is this working? Do you like it? Do you recognize it? Now that you can see it, you've got some choices to change it. So I'll be doing that at the Elizabeth Howell Fair, as well as animal communication readings, because they are a favorite. It's always fun to see what your pets are going to say and what they need, especially as the seasons change. I keep just learning so much about them and their needs and how they communicate them. So I can't wait to do that. And that'll be the October the 19th on the Sunday. I want to say that we will be starting at 11 and readings wrap up at 5. I do have that on my meetup if you want details. And you can also search it on Facebook too for Elizabeth Howell Holistic and Psychic Fair in Northeast Ohio. This one's going to be in Strongsville over at the Best Western Plus. Okay, and then other things coming up actually while I'm on this topic. I've got a brand new trauma support group that is starting on October the 7th. It is going to be the first Tuesday of every month. Or no, the second Tuesday of every month. Either way, the first one is October 7th, and it is a group for people overcoming and surviving through trauma, where we're going to gather together, work on nervous system regulation, help you to begin to have some tips and tricks to navigate your system, and in real time with other people, have some group coaching, some support. I'll bring in some breath work, some guided imagery, and possibly some meditation. So it's a nice way for you to feel supported, to know you're not alone, and to be in a group with other people. And that's going to be monthly for free, and that's also on my meetup. So if you feel called to it, I would love to have you, and we will be moving from surviving to thriving together. All right, coming back to the Akashic Records, some of the things I wanted to cover tonight. So There's just so much, it's so vast. You can actually go into the Akashic Records and ask questions at the level of depth that you like. If you're someone who's not very deep or doesn't really spend a whole lot of time with reflecting on like the quality of the soul or why you incarnated or what some of the lessons you're learning are, that's perfectly okay. You can still get really good guidance and insight, have a chance to reflect and learn things. And if you are, then even better, because then there's so much more to learn. And then you have access. So, kind of like past life regression, you could also go to the space between lives, the Michael Newton method, the Alan Chips method of life between lives. And you could do that from within your Akashic records to learn, hey, why am I here? What is my purpose in this life? Why did I choose the family, the body, the characteristics that are me versus other things? And to know where you're in full alignment living that purpose, and where do you sometimes get distracted or carried off? And what is that about? So it can make for a really rich and detailed experience. Now, you can do really elaborate Akashic record readings, but I'm going to say my favorite ones are usually the shorter ones. Sometimes just 5 to 10 minutes is plenty. I can go in and just learn so much in that brief amount of time of, okay, where has my energy been? Is my energy system in a way that feels good, that is moving naturally? Or did I get caught up in trauma? Did I shift my typical baseline because of what was happening around me at the time? And have some insights there and learn how to bring it all back in and integrate once more. And we can learn a lot about our relationships, about how we're in relationship with other people. Oftentimes, I'm on the Galactic Akashic Records. If you're familiar with Debbie Solaris, I took her training, which was a really wonderful training. She talks all about star seeds and soul contracts and all of the just the different galactic races that there are. And many of us are starseeds at this time, and we have some of that influence. And so there may be things about yourself that you've never fully understood. You don't know where that comes from, but you've possibly always just been that way. Some of those things explain that very nature that you have. And so I went ahead and took her training a couple of years ago now for Galactic Akashic Records. And it's interesting because when I do that, we can really learn a lot about a person's their mindset, their personality, their purpose, the way that the character is, their gifts, their abilities, the things they're not good at, as well as who they'd be best in relationship with. And sometimes because I'm on her list as being a graduate, sometimes people kind of come through and want to get a reading from me. And they're asking questions about things like twin flames. Oh boy. Twin flames is another topic that, I may just have to bring in a guest for, someone who is an old friend of mine who actually wrote a book about it and has had quite the tale to tell about the twin flame experience. The twin flame thing is that there is a segment of the population that believes that their soul is divided and that the soul can be in multiple bodies at once. And that comes from Life Between Lives and the Michael Newton research, as well as other places too. But a twin flame is someone who is supposed to share your soul, but be in a different body. And usually the energies will balance each other, in terms of male, female, and the characteristics and things like that. Now, when I say male, female, I'm talking about energy. It doesn't actually have to be the body itself. And boy, those relationships can be chaotic. I've seen many a dumpster fire of people who are twin flames. And the reason that is because they are meant to be catalysts for each other. They are meant to experience each other, to learn, to grow, and to possibly manifest really great abilities at the soul level. And so it's fascinating because that kind of seeps into the Akashic Records work that I do, and that someone is always asking, have I met my twin flame? Where are they? And something unexpected happened. And as you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of the twin flame conversation. I'm not a fan because I find it a bit disempowering to say, oh, as if I'm not a complete person. There has to be my other half out there. And I think that's very much a myth as far as like twin flames goes. You're not necessarily meant to be with that twin flame. Not all twin flames end up together. Some cannot. They are simply too toxic together. They're too chaotic. Others have succeeded and are with their twin flame and have a wonderful relationship after having done a lot of work at the soul level, both of them. But the thing I don't like about it is to say that when a soul is here that it's incomplete. No. Absolutely not. I feel very complete as a person. Do I love my spouse? Yes. Would I say he's my twin flame? No. No, I don't think so. Soulmate? Absolutely. And I think to have that concept, a lot of people go into the romantic aspect of it, and then they kind of leave themselves in a space of disempowerment, like somehow they're not enough or they're lacking or missing. And that's just not it at all. We're not here for that purpose most of the time. I'll have to ask my friend Leslie if she'd be willing to come on and talk and do a segment about twin flames. But the interesting thing that happened was someone had asked me at one point where their twin flame was. And honestly, I had never even thought to go into the records and to look. And I said, well, interesting. Let's try it and see what happens. And wildly enough, I could actually locate this person's twin flame, and there is an energetic component to it. I could feel that wasn't just a soulmate. It was different, even though I don't agree with everything of it, or at least I don't agree with the perception of it most of the time, the common perception. So it's really interesting for me to not only be reading for someone, but then to be reading for someone and find out, oh, they do actually have this part of the soul and part of the lessons. And what was fascinating is when I do my readings, oftentimes I haven't met the person that I'm reading for. The majority of the times, I check in, I receive an email, they let me know what questions they have. I go ahead and go into meditation on my own and I record my findings. And then I send it. And then usually they come back to me and say, hey, this really resonated, or that made sense, or I'm confused about this part. And we have a bit of a dialogue about it. And that's how I tend to prefer to do my stuff. Now, on the 19th, when I'm at the fair, we'll be face to face. You're welcome to ask any questions you like, as I'll be doing it right there on the spot. And I'll be able to clarify things for you. But when I do them that way, it's already done. And so I have no idea the level of accuracy that I have until people come back and tell me. And so this reading was very profound because not only did I locate the person's twin flame, I was able to explain who they were in this incarnation, what they looked like, their nationality, their religion, and where they were in the world. And what's wild is when the client had finally gotten that reading, they came back and they were able to validate so many things, and that they themselves were feeling called to go to that country where the twin flame lives, and that they needed that energy. So it was fascinating to me that the person was planning to actually go to that country, and I don't know if they will ever meet, or if just the proximity is enough for their energy to interact with each other and to, again, be that catalyst for their soul. So, even though I don't fully agree with everything that come into the Akashic Record readings, and sometimes I get to experience things from a different level, a different layer, it's really, really fascinating. And that's just one facet of what we can do in the records. So, one of my favorite uses for the records is actually healing. You can go in, you can work on your energy bodies, you can ask guides for help. I've been able to do things like entity releasement in the Akashic Records, getting rid of lower astral entities that have hooked on, or even earthbound spirits that have hooked on to energy. And that's always very beneficial to unhook and detach things that are not meant to be in your energetic fields that sometimes are passed down through lineage, through ancestral connections. Sometimes it's stuff we've picked up. Oh, goodness. Every time somebody tells me they are into ghost hunting and doing seances, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Because even when people have some of the best protections, it just takes one moment of your energetic vibration dropping and you being resonant for something else, for your energy to possibly get hijacked. And then the chaos that can ensue after can be a lot. Right. Even if you practiced immaculate psychic hygiene, which you can learn in the records, you might still have a moment one day where trauma happens and then your vibration dips and it makes you susceptible to possible entities that are around. And so I like to go in and to work in my records for that. I typically work with archangels and I ask for their assistance. And because I'm very clairvoyant, for me, it's like a whole audio video experience where I can actually scan my energy body and see what's happening and where it came from and release anything I have to release and make sure that I restore the energy and that things are balanced. And that's just one small aspect. I can heal things within the records on all levels. So mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, physical. I've had some really great experiences with that too. And we all can. It's something that is available to everyone, but it does take a little bit of practice. It does take, I don't know that necessarily everybody needs mentoring. I think I was really fortunate in that respect that I had someone sit and actually mentor me. But it definitely takes a little bit of patience and willingness to keep showing up and to keep trying and to anticipate that every reading is going to be different. And there may be times when you make mistakes with how you access the records. It is one of those modalities that will self-correct you and teach you how to use it. And that's not many healing modalities. So in that way, I feel like that one is very unique. We can also work with our galactic teams. So actually working with starseed families and getting attunements and upgrades and energetic support in that regard is really fantastic and super helpful. So, how is it that sometimes when we do the Akashic Records, it can feel vague or unclear? And I'm going to say there are a few factors that can play in. When you're working in the Akashic Records, you really want to have a good, clear intention and a goal. Ideally, you only want to go in for one thing at a time. Now, when I say one thing at a time, that doesn't mean that you can't ask multiple questions. You certainly can, but you don't want to be jumping all over. Typically, when I'm doing a reading for clients, I don't take more than 3 questions at a time, unless it's really going to be an extended reading. And in that case, I'd rather, frankly, just put them into hypnotherapy, into a theta state, and guide them to their own records, because then they can learn to practice on their own. And it becomes a tool that they use rather than just something I'm doing to them. And so from that frame, It can be that they've maybe taken on too much at once. They're asking too many questions, or their intention is unclear. When we're working in the records, we need to hold a high enough vibration to be able to reach into that plane. Now, I've read and I've learned from several different places that the Akashic Records can be accessed from different astral planes, from different points. And so, if you're going through a phase in your life, say you're a regular Akashic reader and you're used to going into the records, and maybe you're an artist and you love to go in, open your records, and then you allow it to inspire you, and then you come back to daily life, and then you use that inspiration to make incredible art. Say you're going through a phase of grief or loss. Grief or loss have a big impact on your vibration. They have a big impact on your emotional regulation, on your nervous system, on the body. And so the next time they go to get into the records at that lower vibratory rate, it doesn't mean you can't get in, but it means you're probably going to have a different quality of the Akashic Records available to you. Now, as I teach my students, you can access the records just to go in and to receive healing and to enhance and raise your vibration. That's always an option. And it's a really great one. If someone is really struggling energetically, it can be helpful to open the records as they're sleeping or just before they're falling asleep. Leave them open until the morning. And in the morning, properly close them down. Otherwise, you're going to have a bit of a challenging day. The days when I wake up and I forget to close my records, those are the days that I stub my toe and I walk into walls and I'm not fully present in my body, and it's not ideal. So, but the days we do that, you can actually raise vibration and get additional support from your guides, your ancestors, your loved ones in spirit. Any teams of energy that you like to work with can be there. And they have to be at a certain frequency themselves. They have to be at a certain vibration to even have access to it. So it could be that you're getting in from the 8th astral plane, or maybe the 12th, or maybe the 21st. And so that can have a large impact on how readings come out and the level of information accessible. Another thing that would make an impact on that is we're all human. We all have our own individual filters that we see life through, just like the lens of a camera has different filters. The less that a person reading for another has done in terms of their personal development, the more that's going to impact their readings. Someone who has a hard time with self-esteem or self-worth, that's going to impact their reading. Anytime they're having issue with addictions, that's going to impact their ability to give a good reading. One, because the addictions are going to bring them into a cycle of shame or guilt, lower their vibration, depending on what's happening. And so there's that aspect of it. And then also, if they're in an active addiction with a substance, they're really not present. They don't have the faculties and the capacity to really see things from multiple different angles. And so that's something that can also get in the way of the clarity of a good reading. So for a good reading, I really recommend having good intention, high vibration. You want to be heart-centered. It's good to maybe write out your thoughts ahead of time. If I knew that I wanted to ask something specific around maybe some of my abilities, then I would maybe write out a couple of questions. With the records, because they're infinite and eternal, we're not really going to ask questions about when. Because when we're asking an eternal being, when is this going to happen for me? For them, something that seems like a very short time might be a very long time in human years. The time of the concept of time, it just doesn't work. So I typically don't use when questions. If I want to know how I can move something along a little faster, then I might come in with some accountability of what do I need to be doing to cultivate or to develop this ability more? How can I get out of my own way? What other hobbies could I do that would help me enhance this? Anytime we show accountability or the interest of really working on something for ourselves, our spirit team, our guides, they love that. And they are going to be all in terms of supporting us because there's that level of accountability there. And that's an important thing to think about in terms of doing your own readings. So, looking at how you're phrasing questions, are you going to a place of victimhood? Are you going to a place of shame? Or are you blaming other people for something? Versus, are you going in and saying, okay, how can I, within myself, make a change that's going to give me more of what I'm looking for in life? Bingo. Then you get perspective, then you get clarity, and then you get answers. And so the Akashic Records, when we're working on our own readings, it's practice. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error. And the beautiful thing is, I haven't yet encountered an error so grave that I've not been able to bounce back from it. It's been a very forgiving, very gentle process for me. And I think it is for most. I really, really do. So it can be something that we do. And I think, another thing that's important is time on task. It's important to go and to spend a little bit of time, often, frequently, in your records, just getting used to what's going to occur. There are times when I go into records and I'm about to read for a client and my guides are like, you got to do some cleanup first. You need to go take care of yourself energetically. Or, hey, you haven't been here in a minute. Let's do some reflection before you go into a client reading. And so that's the fun thing, is there are elements of surprise that show up when you're working with your teams, your guides, if it's your galactic teams, your archangels, or your ancestors. They play an active role in co-creating with you. And so you can have some wonderful surprises there. And I think I went off on a really big tangent because I got lost. But I think it is important to go in often and to make it a regular part of your life. And as you do that, then accessing it, it doesn't feel as difficult. And then the confidence can start to grow. And then you can ask for validations and actually find proof and tangible results from working within your records. So a reading can feel vague or unclear if you're working with someone and perhaps they've just been through a big life trauma and they haven't been in their records for a while. That will affect the reading as well. That's something to consider when you're choosing an Akashic Record reader. Another question: what role do galactic guides play in our records? And so, yes, we can absolutely work with them. We can get to know them. W. Solaris is renowned for actually mapping galactic histories and the various wars and race things that had happened through time and through space. I don't know that I will ever be able to do that to that capacity. That woman is astounding, truly. But I like to really work with them a little more one-on-one in terms of learning about myself, learning about why my mind works the way that it works and where does that influence come from. Did that come from the way that I was raised? Did that come from the way that I live my life? Did it come from a particular person, or is it actually part of my galactic team and it's like a race identifying characteristic? And when we learn those things, it can be really kind of soothing and comforting. We get that tribal aspect feeling of like belonging. And then it just makes a whole lot of sense of, oh, of course I'm this way. That makes sense now. Otherwise, we'd all be possibly questioning if we're adopted, right? So I find that's really, really helpful. But if you have Arcturian within your galactic starseeds, they are a wonderful healing resource. Some of the Syrian ones are actually very gifted in terms of psychic work. they can vary. Pleiadians are very heart-centered. They're very loving. They bring a very soothing energy. And there are so many different ones to work with. I have had the gift of seeing how some other people work in their records with the galactic teams. Another person I'd love to have on this podcast one day is Katesh. She does beautiful work. Her name is actually Elizabeth Evans, but her company name is Katesh. And so recently she's been doing group galactic meditations, and they're so beautiful. We can actually find so many different things that are actually impacting your energy and your choices and the way that you do things. I remember a couple of months back, probably almost a year now, actually, we had traded sessions. And in one of my past life regressions, I went to a past life where I was a Lyran, but also called Irma. And I could see how within those lives, it was very fascinating because I had multiple incarnations as these tall cat beings that are very psychic, very intuitive, really good healers, just astounding beings. And they had histories of the Lyran and reptilian wars. And in one of my past lives, I actually got to experience one of those wars because I was there and I saw like and it was so weird because I was having a weird moment of grief in my life. And I couldn't pinpoint what I was grieving because life seemed to be going pretty good, frankly. I didn't feel like there was anything I was grieving from this incarnation. But then through doing the past life regression session with her, what I found was, oh, there's this grief from that Lyran reptilian war that was kind of bleeding through this experience that I'm living now. We really are quantum beings in that we can have so many things impacting us at different times, and they can be things that get in our way, or it can actually be things that we alchemize and become an incredible power for us, an ability, a natural knowing, a gift. And so that's why I love to do this work. And so it was just profound for me of, wow, here I've been carrying this grief, not quite sure where it is coming from or what it's all about. And it turns out that's what it was. It was from a past life as a Lyran. So that was such just a profound experience. And then, of course, having the past life regression portion of it done, then I start to actually really process the grief, and then it alleviated. It was just gone. And I got to move on and do other things. And since then, God, a lot has changed. Actually, I want to say it wasn't long after. Just so many things started to take place in my life in terms of manifesting and really coming into my own as a holistic practitioner. So that's been wonderful. I have so many big updates for you guys that I'm just holding my tongue on because I'm still getting a lot of things into place. But boy, I can't wait to unroll all of these things that I've got coming up. And I want to say that a lot of it is because I did that work. It's with working with my own Akashic Records almost on a daily basis, at least for 5 to 10 minutes in the morning as I'm waking up. And then if I'm doing client readings or if I'm guiding someone, sometimes I'm still getting some intuitive self-work in those moments too. I'm learning things from your guys' sessions, which is incredible. But I really feel like that work just has had a more profound, big impact on me. And so the more of it I do, the more I'm finding like I'm just evolving as a person in so many ways. And it's really cool. To the point where I look back just in a year and it's like, whoa, I feel like I've lived 5 different lives. Like so many things have changed. So your records are just a really great, a viable option for you to begin to access and to practice. There are so many great books out there I think what's challenging is sometimes the books don't make it clear enough how to actually practice, and that's why I like to teach it as a workshop. I will have some more workshops coming, but I think I'd like to change the way that I do them. And I think I'm going to break them up into smaller segments, possibly have groups that come along and have like maybe a monthly practice group or something like that. Or maybe do a segment of Akashic Records, but have it be once a week for like 6 to 8 weeks so that you guys are getting regular practice and then you're having little mini assignments to take home and to work on and to practice with and to learn. And I really feel like the best training is really when you're diving in, you're doing your own work. But then that would also allow us time for me to guide you in a couple of times for you to get comfortable with the process and begin to make your own kind of routines and ways, little rituals for getting yourself into that state and that space. But there's just so much that's available there in terms of what you can do. It's a wonderful way to go in and process emotions and ask some of the deepest questions you have about yourself, about the experiences you're having, about the lessons and the learnings. So, what else would I like to say about the records today? I don't see any questions at the moment, so I'm just going to continue sharing with whatever's intuitively coming up for me. Some of the things that block a good Akashic record access, I'm going to say, is definitely vibration. It's definitely intention. You can't misuse the records and try to obtain information that is not yours to be had. Yes, we have free will, but there are still universal laws in place. And so you can't just randomly go in without someone else's permission and spy on their life, right? So that'll, one thing, definitely lower your vibration, because if you're doing that, you're probably in a place of fear or insecurity or have something that you need to resolve. And when we go into any kind of psychic work from that place, that's where trickster energies often take place. And you're going to end up getting information that is not helpful, workable, or valid. So that's something to consider. Another thing I think is learning to work with the nervous system is just so important. And I teach this to my students all the time. If you're healing a wound on the body, or you've got some kind of disease or illness, and if it's taking a lot of the body's resources, your nervous system, your brain, your body is just going to say no. It is not priority for you to go on a spiritual journey while you're actively healing something. Well, the body needs those resources to overcome something. So a lot of people have concerns at different points as they're going through life. You know, things happen. People have different experiences. They get sick, they get wounded, they have to heal, they have surgery, things like that. And there's often this fear that can happen of, oh, did I lose my abilities? I don't feel as connected. I'm not having that high vibrational feeling, that sense of connection to my loved ones, my ancestors, my angels, all of those things. And it's like, well, that's because your nervous system doesn't quite feel safe. And so one of the key things is actually doing a bit of breath work before you go into your Akashic records. Like any mediumship or psychic work, it's so important that we just take time to be present, to breathe. Because not only are you slowing everything down, and you're starting to go into your internal senses, but right in that moment, you're signaling to your nervous system, oh, I'm safe. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to go inward. There's nothing around me that needs my attention for survival. Because otherwise your resources would shift and it just wouldn't be available. And it's not that your gifts aren't available. It's just not priority in terms of time and importance. And so I think that's one thing, is that a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to access my records, but they're doing it because they're in a moment of panic or fear. Oh, my boyfriend just broke up with me. I thought he was the one. Let me go into the records and find out if he's my soulmate. But they're doing it from an incredibly low and panicked vibration. Maybe they're having deep grief or huge shock and upset. And so, of course, the nervous system is not in the right place. And then what happens? They get some trickster energy, and then it works out to be a bad reading, right? So I think I'd like to leave it at that for today, because I've covered a lot of things. I've bounced around a lot, but I'd love to hear, what are your takeaways? Have you had some experiences with the records, and what has that been like for you? If you are working with the Akashic Records, or you've been a previous student of mine, I'd love to hear how it's going. What experiences have you had that have been your favorites so far? And share some of your learnings. Otherwise, I hope to see you on October 19th over at the Holistic and Psychic Fair in Strongsville at the Best Western Plus. I will be there in person, and I'll be doing Akashic record readings, animal communication, and of course, shadow work readings, and some life coaching as well. So hopefully I can help you answer some of the deep questions that you've had going on, whether it's your life purpose or lessons, or how to change yourself so that you don't encounter the same challenges day after day. And that's the gift of the records. But I guess I'll leave it at that for now. So, as always, Soulful Seeker, I'll try to come back as soon as I can and share more insights. You're welcome to send in questions and let me know what is brewing for you. I always love to hear it. Have you had a favorite guest on the podcast so far? Let me know who you've enjoyed, and I'll see who else I can bring on. But for now, stay happy, stay healthy, stay well, but most of all, stay inspired. Bye for now.